Oh my god, you're flipping out, dude.
That's what I said, you guys. There is so much to talk about on this episode. All right, shall we get
Oh,
going?
let's go. I better turn you up a little bit then. I like you a lot though. I mean,
Season 2 of The Icebreakers, Episode 5. Voice crack.
Cue music. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Icebreakers podcast. My name is Matt Evers, and I am so delighted to share the screen with Cowboy Carter this week. Frankie Seaman, look at this hat.
yeehaw! There was no theme this week on Dancing on Ice, which I was mighty disappointed about. Of course, the theme this week was all about the welcome to the skate off. Dun dun dun.
I mean, the words skate off were mentioned 746 times on the program today. It was literally like, coming up after the break. Don't forget, we got the skate off. Skating next. Oh, the skate off. Vanessa and Dan, the skate off. I mean, literally, it just was the entire show was about the skate off tonight.
Poor celebrities weren't traumatized before tonight's show about the skate off. They certainly were now. They're all at home right now, sitting in their ice baths, just shaking, like, skate off.
Scared the living bejesus out of all of them. But I have to say, tonight's show was, as we said last week, the show frustrated us because it was kind of all over the place, right? And I felt like the production value tonight was better. However, the show frustrated me again tonight. Our goal was to be the voice of the viewers because Frankie and I obviously are not in the show anymore, right? And we now watch the show at home like you guys do. And
Super fans.
Yeah, we're fans. And I feel like we're able to critique, criticize, do whatever, and obviously praise the show the way that the viewers would. And I don't know about you guys at home right now, but there was a lot of things that contradicted itself within the comments, just them banging on about the skate off. Like, we've lasted 16 series with skate offs. We know what to expect, right? So I don't know, Frankie, how did it make you feel?
Oh, I was triggered on so many levels. I mean, I was triggered at my feet, triggered at my knees, my hips were going, like the whole thing. I had the butterflies. Listen, welcome to the skate off, new professionals, because you've never ever experienced this. And the problem with the skate off is, you're never ready for it. You know, you practice it and you know that it's coming, but you never really truly believe that you're going to be in it. And that's the problem. You need to believe every week, I'm going to be in the skate off, I'm going to be in the skate off. And once you get that mentality in your head, we're going to be in the skate off, then if you're not, it's a bonus. But if you go into every week thinking, oh, we'll be fine, and then you hit you've got to be ready. And I think we saw that tonight with the skate off and the result and what happened.
Yeah, well, I want to just pick up exactly what you said because you hit the nail on the head. Right? I think what happened tonight with Chris going home, spoiler alert, is that Vanessa Bauer, who was skating with Chris, and now we have Robin, right? And we'll get into this once we get to Chris's routine. However, Vanessa's never been in a skate off. Never, right? She has always either left the show due to injury or the celebs being injured, or she's made it to the final, which is fantastic. But at the same token, you have to know how to choreograph for a skate off. And when you have a lyrical piece like Chris did, like you said, they weren't really prepared. You couldn't go up against choreography like Anton had when both skate clean.
Yeah, that leaves a big gap in your knowledge if you've never been in a skate off. That's a lot of shows to have never ever experienced that. And actually, it's not you that has to experience it. Look, for us, this is our job. Of course, you feel a little bit nervy. You're going into a skate off like, oh, what will happen? Because it's out of your hands at this point. You know, you can only do your best and hope that your celebrity partner does their best, hope that you've trained them through the week to do their best. But actually, you have to experience what it's like skating with a celebrity in a skate off because they can go to jelly. They can go weak at the knees, they can check out mentally, you never know. Some of them, and I think Anton was probably a prime case here as he was the other person in the skate off, some of them really knuckle down and just get laser like focus. But we'll get into that when we talk about the skate off, I think.
Yeah, well, for sure. And first to skate was Anton.
Antoinette.
skating to Livin' La Vida Loca, which I was a little bit nervous about when I heard the song reveal because this track is fast and it's furious and you just never know what is going to happen with those feet on the ice.
Well, can I say that Chris Fountain and I immortalized this track back in 2008, I think. I mean, it was solo skates. He came out and he did this entire Ricky Martin routine. Now, Chris was an excellent skater. I'm not saying Anton isn't. I've always been a big fan of Anton, actually. I think he's a good skater. But this music is not for the faint-hearted. Like, you need to buckle up, cowboy, because this rodeo is going to get rough.
Oh, here come the puns. I forgot.
That one just popped out. I didn't even mean to do that one. I don't know where it came from. It came from under my hat.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Well, yes, he had the footwork, he had the partner work, he had the different handholds, they had an overhead lift, he did the airplane spin, which, Annette, we've seen this 3 times now.
It was a crazy, manic, bonkers routine from start to finish. I felt like they were shot out of a cannon, and it was just da-dung, 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 da-dung. It was a non-stop, but it was too fast for him. This is not a kind routine for him. It's not Anton. He's a good skater, but you get music like this and you don't get the opportunity to skate because it's toe, 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 trick, trick, toe, toe. It was non-stop. It actually made me a bit breathless.
Well, it made me nervous because it just put me on the edge of my seat because we didn't get to see the quality of Anton's skating, and what we saw was just choreography, trick, handhold, spinning, spot. Do you know what I mean? And it came across as a little bit messy, and that is the problem sometimes with over choreographing a celebrity when they're not a professional dancer or a professional ice skater, that it just everything gets muddled and messy together.
So the first thing I wrote was, because he did this little bit of solo shimmy, shimmy, shimmy at the top by himself. And the first thing I wrote was, get your legs underneath you, because he was standing like in this shape in an A-frame. And I was like, oh, put your legs underneath you. We need to see those legs underneath those hips if you're going to do any kind of shimmying. But the second thing I wrote was skate off. I actually literally wrote skate off. The minute he started skating, I was like, no. I know he can skate better than that. Can he dance better than that? Absolutely not. Let's not play to his weaknesses. Let's play to his strengths. And his strength is his skating and his lifts. And that music and all that choreography that kind of came after it, I just felt was like a big old giant mess.
Well, the judges scored him quite well, 8.5s across the board, a total of 34. Odie did mention his posture and that he came across a little bit stiff. And Frankie, I think that goes along with what you were saying with the placement of his feet underneath his body. If they are in that A-frame, it makes your knees lock out, right? And it actually can make you more stiff or make you look more stiff than you really are. Chris said there was loads and loads and loads of steps. However, pay attention to the detail. Ashley said, keep polishing. And what he means by that is a little bit of what we've said. Take some of the content out and make the rest of the content better.
I found, just watching the performance and watching his face, he wasn't enjoying it. He was not comfortable with what he was doing. I could tell, and it was maximum effort for minimal results from my point of view. But this is a really interesting point about the skate off, because it wasn't his finest performance. And I know Antoinette, if they're listening, they won't disagree with me on that. It wasn't his finest performance. It wasn't comfortable. It was nervy. It was shaky. It was edgy. It was sketchy. But when he came to the skate off, my God, did that boy pull out his finger. Like, I saw that laser-like focus. He's an athlete. He knows how to compete under pressure. And he was like, you know what? I messed up the first time, second time. I'm going to nail it. Good, bad, or ugly. You go home, you stay. That's out of your hands. But he literally pulled it out.
And that's what you get when an athlete goes into that skate off. You get to see what they're so good at.
Take a bow, Antoinette, because that was pure competition.
All right, well, moving on. Couple number 2 was Chris and Robin skating to Golden Hour. Now, this is the first full... Oh, yeah?
I wrote Chris and Chooch. Sorry, it's Chris and Robin, of course it is. No nicknames, sorry.
Yes, Robin's nickname is Chooch, only for her very close friends, as Frankie is. This was our first full week of rehearsals together and training together. It was really interesting to see the difference, because we spoke last week about if they were to ever do like a partner swap as a challenge, and you said you'd be terrified of it, and I said, well, actually, we could see something good come out of it, something great come out of it, right? Because we all speak English, but at the same token, too, we all speak a different language. And I kind of feel like some of the successful pros on Dancing on Ice You learn how to speak your partner's language as quick as possible. How do you say something and get into their brain as fast as possible so that they can get it into their body? And what I felt this week is that, and I think it was sort of quantified by the judge's comments, he became somebody else this week. His skating was different.
He was stunning. I mean, that opening shot of them, I felt like they'd eaten glitter for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then just regurgitated it. It was like the sky at night. Just the opening aesthetic was so beautiful. I already thought, you know what? Nothing can go wrong here. And he already said in his VT that he uses humor as a coping mechanism. And I get that. Like, if you feel uncomfortable or you're not quite, sure of yourself, of course you're going to try and make a joke or have a little bit of banter. And then somebody gives you this romantic music and you have to emote and you have to feel this other person that you're skating with and connect with them. He was flowing, he was shimmering, it was serene, it was fluid. I just loved it. I wrote down wow in capitals because I like to shout at myself when I write. I wrote wow. He's improved so much. He was a new boy.
We're gonna talk about. Well, I want to talk about this when we get to Charlie as well. But what we're seeing here is sometimes when you are given a challenge, and the challenge, well, they weren't given it. Well, he was given it, but it wasn't by choice. Having to skate with a new partner. Sometimes what happens is you're so concerned about learning this other person and being able to gel with them so quickly that you then start to forget about the actual skating, and your head gets out of its way.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why I think we're seeing with Charlie as well as Chris this week is different skaters. And it's like their skill level jumped up 10 points. And I will say the only thing that I wrote down as a critique for Chris, not that it matters because unfortunately their journey has ended, but he just needed to learn how to connect with Robin a little bit, and it's tiny little things like head positions. When they did that leg lift kind of carry lift that they did, Robin looked towards the audience or towards camera, but then Chris was looking the other direction. And I think if they could have looked in the same direction, it would have just created a little bit more of an intimate feel. We could have seen a lot more from Chris, and I thought he was a brilliant skater. I really liked what he brought to the show. We saw a lot of sort of diversity with him, with his skating to something funny, fast, now something romantic. So it's unfortunate.
He had some incredible tricks. We saw him do the hydro glide earlier on tonight. We saw him do the skate glide. Really, really difficult, high strength, high level tricks that we don't often see male celebrities perform. We often see females perform them because we feel like they can be more supported by their partner. But in this case, he was completely on his own, doing tricks that I haven't seen other male skaters do ever, even the likes of kind of Ray Quinn and stuff. So I was really impressed with his skating. But of course, they skated second. And as I've pointed out in the past, you skate second and it's a dodgy place to skate. So watch out, folks.
The judges scored him 8s across the board, giving him a 32, and unfortunately he was put into the skate off. Now, this is where I wanted to unpack something that makes me very confused. And I say this in regards to sort of the narrative that the show is pulling right now. Vanessa Bauer did the choreography for this routine. Okay? But then we see in other routines that Dan and Karen do the choreography. Or then in other routines, the professional does the choreography. Now, with no disrespect to Vanessa Bauer, Robin is a very accomplished professional and has the capability and capacity to do that choreography. So this is where I'm like, okay, well, what happened here? And maybe that was a mutual decision between Chris, Robin, production, Vanessa, XYZ. But
I didn't like it.
It made me feel very uncomfortable for Robin's point of view.
Yeah. I wouldn't like that. I wouldn't like, well, not you, because obviously you were my skating partner, but I wouldn't like, for example, Alexandra Schauman coming to me and saying, hey, I'm going to choreograph your number this week, because she and I are completely different skaters. Love her to pieces. One of my besties on the ice. Great. But I don't want her choreographing for me, even though she's a fantastic choreographer, because we skate differently and she doesn't know how I skate and she doesn't know my partner. I mean, obviously Vanessa knows Chris, and perhaps he felt more comfortable having Vanessa around, or perhaps he wanted to make her feel included, but there she was hopping around on her boots, which isn't good for her anyway. And then, of course, then it makes Robin feel like, well, hey, why am I here? It's very, it made me feel very uncomfortable. This partnership, you want more connection between you and your partner, then you got to connect. You got to put the work in. The two of you have got to be on the ice. You've got to be messing up. You've got to be laughing. You've got to be joking. You've got to be getting strict sometimes. Like, that's how you build a connection and trust with your partner. And you've got the third person on the ice commentating, or you've got Dan and Chris on the Dan and Karen on the ice commentating. And sometimes that can be more of a hindrance in that personal relationship that you're trying to develop.
Just was very confusing to me because it's throwing in extra sort of angles into
Noise.
what the show. Yeah, a lot of
Extra.
noise. Exactly. And even for us as the viewers, right? Because again, it's just okay, well, who is choreographing the show? And if it is down to the professionals to choreograph, how come some people get extra help and other people don't?
And then also, it makes me uncomfortable when the judges talk about the choreography. If you want your professionals to choreograph, but then you're going to criticize the choreography, or you want Dan and Karen to choreograph, and then you criticize. I mean, the judges were criticizing the choreography all night tonight, and I was like,
Yep.
I don't know how Dan and Karen feel about that, but all I was hearing all night was, well, the choreography wasn't best, or the choreography didn't fit you, or the choreography needs to be better. And I was like, okay, but you're not now talking about the celebrity getting better. You're talking about the choreographers getting better, and that's a different show. I think. I don't know. What do you think?
No, and I have said this from the reboot, which was series 10, so 7 series ago, when it was then put into our contracts that we then had to do choreography. And it was a really big talking point within production and all of the professionals because we had said, okay, that's fine. We're more than capable of choreographing these numbers, but me as a choreographer, not that I am, but me as a choreographer, if you critique the choreography from the professional, that makes the pro look bad. And
Yeah.
there's a fine line to that, right? Because you should be able to critique the choreography without defamation. And I think that's what we've seen over the course, but then it's like, well, some pros aren't very good at choreographing, so then Dan and Karen have to step in more. And I will be the first to admit there were a lot of times that I was given a piece of music and you've got literally 2 hours to choreograph it and I needed help. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And
Yeah,
I was
no, I
okay
hear
with
you.
that.
Definitely, I hear you. And I think especially from a male professional point of view, in a male-female professional partnership, like when you and I skated together, I probably would have the more creative input because it's just the way it works. You have the more technical input, I have the more creative input. That's just how, it's the strength of a man versus the grace of a woman. That is what the epitome of pair skating is. Strength for a man, grace for a woman. That's how it works. And so I can understand why you as a professional male and as other professional males might think, oh, I'm not quite sure if this looks right or if it feels right because you're working with a celebrity who's not a professional and they can't say to you, I don't like that, it feels funny. So I totally get that. But then you're right, when the judges are critiquing the choreography, what they should be saying is, we enjoyed the choreography, but it wasn't quite executed correctly by the celebrity. They should be more focusing on the
Bingo.
execution of the choreography, not the actual choreography itself, because then you're basically saying, well, your work's not good enough to the pro skater, and that's not cool. Or to Dan and Karen, more to the point, and that's not cool.
Yes, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Because regardless of if the pro does the choreography, we are overseen by two other heads of state. Well, actually, three other heads of state, because then you've got a producer as well, right? And then the camera director. But
Yeah.
regardless, I think that it gets to be a really gray area when they start critiquing choreography. And I think what you said is they should be critiquing the execution of the choreography.
Yeah, that's
Because
what I said. I mean, I think there must be probably fireworks backstage, and I would like to be a fly on the wall when that happens. So I'd be like,
and my rant is over.
who's been
Rant over.
critiquing my choreography? I will see you backstage. Fisticuffs.
All right, moving on. All right, skating third was Molly and Colin. Hotttogo.
It's
That's all I
Mollin.
got.
It's Molly and Colin. It's Mollin.
Speaking of cheerleaders, okay, I'm gonna say this too. The VTs, come on, they're outdated, man. Going to a cheer camp and do you know what I mean? Like I feel like it's a little bit egg on toast. And
I
they should
think you
be
mean egg on
skating.
bread. Egg on
the-
toast is lovely. Egg on bread, not so much.
exactly. Is that the actual saying, egg on bread?
Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go. That shows you how much of my knowledge I have.
That's how
Um,
awkward it was. You can't even get the expression right. It was so awkward.
exactly. But it's this is a skating show, and I want to see them training, right? I want to see the trips and the falls and the mishaps in training on the ice. I don't necessarily need to see Molly and Colin going to a cheer camp, as amazing as those cheerleaders are. Like, come on, right?
No, I agree with you. Because you don't really get much from it because they're a
You
bit
get nothing
confused.
from it. As the viewer, you get nothing from it.
Right, so they're a bit confused as to why we're at a cheerleading camp. And actually, I thought they missed a prime opportunity today because it's the Super Bowl. I mean, I'm dressed like Cowboy Carter in a bit of a nod to Beyonce, the Queen, who has done 2 half times. Like, obviously, he had the American football outfit on. I feel like you guys missed a bit of a theming here, even though we don't have a theme this week, so we've had to kind of make it up as we go along. But yeah, they went to this cheerleading camp, and yeah, that's cool that we got to see a bunch of cheerleaders who we'll never ever see again, who have no idea who they are. We're not invested in them. It was kind of like fluff and background. And like you're right, yeah, I want to see the training process. Like bring the cheerleaders to the ice rink maybe and have them on the side. Give me an
Yes.
M, give me an O. Yeah, great.
Yes. And that goes for a lot of the VT because I have that written down for somewhere for somebody else too. But anyway, regardless. All right, let's get to the skating because we're getting way off track.
It's just been
Um,
rant after rant tonight. Rant, 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 rant.
so I will say Molly looked fantastic in the beginning. Everything was so on the beat. But then there was a little bit of a slip on that little cartwheel, or not cartwheel, on that little sort of like box jump toss thingy that Colin did. That he hit his heels, unfortunately, and they almost stacked it.
Well, I was going to say, I think that was more that Colin kind of lost his balance, and I felt like he popped that lift, and I'm not sure. Yeah, you're right. He did go back on his heels, but was that because he popped it because he wasn't fully balanced? And I wondered if he'd hurt himself. Did his? He felt like he lost his strength, and he's a strong guy, so I'm not
It
sure.
either shook him to his core, the fact that they tripped on, or they didn't really trip on that, but they had a wobble on that, or it was the fact that he hurt himself because he completely disconnected from the routine after that.
Yeah, it made me a bit sad actually because we've never seen that from Colin, and I was really concerned about him. I hope he's okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure he is. He's a true professional. He's a trooper. But I was a little bit, the critiques were really harsh as well from the judges. I
Well,
thought for this.
that's what I was just gonna say, and this is. But if we go to the scores first, they scored a 29.5, which put them at the bottom of the leaderboard. Pretty consistent 7.5s. Odie did give them a 7. Now, this is the critiques, right? This is what we were talking about when it comes into the choreography standpoint too. Chris wants more originality, and he didn't like the choreography.
Well, we know
But in the
Dino loves
VT,
he loves to talk about originality, doesn't he? I mean, he always wants more. He's the origin of originality. He just loves originality. So
this goes to, so he was criticizing the choreography, but who did the choreography? In the VT, it looked like Dan and Karen did the choreography. I
well,
don't want to touch that.
oy, 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 no, because well, maybe that's something that Karen and Dino can work out backstage afterwards when they're in the car on the way home. It's going to be
Yeah.
a long ride home, peeps. A long ride. I've been there.
That should have been the VT, the long ride home.
A long ride home. Yeah, I don't know who he was judging there. He did say that the lines and the finishes weren't great, and this is the kind of constructive criticism we need. Yeah, okay, the lines and the finishes he didn't think were good enough. I didn't think they were. I thought they were pretty good actually. I had to. Sorry, Dino.
I
Disagree.
thought I thought for Molly that they were decent. Yes, they could be better, and as Odie and Jane both said, they want to see her land softer. They want to see straighter lines. Because like in that 3 jump that she did, and then the butterfly, her legs were a bit kinked up, right? And for Molly, that's a great critique because once she corrects those things, it'll be so obvious.
I mean, I thought she was really good this week. She looked like she was loving it. And actually, you're right. It felt to me like Colin wasn't quite happy with the
Mhm.
performance. But I thought Molly, she attacked it. She was kind of really in the moment. I thought she was the epitome of cheerleader, actually. So I think in
Yeah.
terms of character and performance, I thought she nailed it.
The first half of that routine was spot on. I was like, damn, she's going for gold here. But then, it just kind of fell apart after that wobble. But
Welcome to Dancing on Ice, people. You just never know.
That ice is slippery stuff. All right, couple number 4, Michaela and Mark skating to Chasing Cars. I mean, I'll say it again, week after week after week. Just, she is the epitome of dancing on ice. This woman gives me hope.
So, by the way, Kieran Bracken, and I'm going back, way back into time. Kieran Bracken, who won Series
2.
2 in 2007, he skated to Chasing Cars. Now, those are big shoes to fill. And Chasing Cars is one of my favorite tracks. I absolutely love it. I thought this was sublime. I loved it. It reminded me of last year when Adele Roberts skated to The Matrix with Mark Canaretti, in fact, again. It was just another iconic moment. I felt like this was one of those moments where you just stop. You stop writing stuff down. You just watch the piece and you just enjoy it.
100%. It wasn't perfect, right?
No.
It
Oh, yeah.
wasn't perfect. And I
Agreed.
think she knows that, right? And I think Mark knows that too. But it was stunning. It was
Beautiful.
so well choreographed for her. The quality of the skating is getting a lot better. And what I mean by that is she's now starting to, I kind of feel like with Michaela that her skating boots haven't broken in yet. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Do you know what I mean? Like it's like she goes to bend, but then it doesn't actually happen. And we as skaters kind of equate that to when your boots are still really stiff. It's hard to get down into that ice. But you can see she's trying, and it's getting better week after week after week. That's
I mean,
being super critical.
I've had my skates 15 years and I still don't feel like they're broken in yet, so I can totally relate to this. But it was a bit stiff. But it was stunning. I did agree with Oti though, because Oti said that she felt it needed a bit more breathing space. And I think that was the only thing, if I was going to be teeny tiny bit picky, and this is like the smallest of comments, but I want to bring it to everyone's attention, is that the choreography was quite full. Now, she's a capable skater, so she managed to hit everything. But sometimes when you have continuous choreography without any breathing spaces at all, it can be hard to connect with your audience, with the camera, with your partner. They didn't fail to do that. I feel like they actually encompassed everything, but they only just managed it. And I felt if they just had one more breathing space in there, we could have reached a deeper depth of emotion. Because Chris said that he thought this was a romantic piece. I disagree. I don't think it is a romantic piece. I think they played it perfectly. I think it's melodramatic. And I liked the drama. I liked that they picked the dynamic beat over and above the romance. I know Dino didn't, so we're going to have to agree to disagree on that. But I thought there was just so much power within that routine.
And interestingly enough, you brought up the fact that Kieran Bracken and Melanie Lambert skated to this and won the series. I believe they did this as their favorite skate too in the final.
Yeah,
And
they
it
did.
wasn't romantic. It was dynamic.
Yeah.
So it was
Yeah.
interesting to hear Chris say that he thought that this should be a romantic piece.
But
However,
I think Chris leans more into romance anyway. When he skates with Jane, they're known for that. So I think he leans more into that. And I think it was quite a shock to him that other people don't, that other people can find relationship outside of romance. It doesn't have to, because they're not romantically inclined or involved anyway. And not that Jane and Chris were either, but, Jane and Chris had years to practice that and work on it. Right? And that sometimes if you're trying to fake romance with someone, it can feel very contrived to the audience at home. So I think if you can't do that, then just go for dynamics. And I've had that before as well. I just felt like it doesn't feel right to play romance when we're not romantically involved. If I'm going to fight for Mark's corner as well, you put a breathing space in here and then the judges go, oh, we could have done with it being a bit fuller, or the choreography being a bit fuller. And Mark stood there and he took that and he went, well, this critique is for me. It has nothing to do with Michaela. This one is on me. And I'm glad that he pointed that out to the audience at home, because it would have been easy to listen to Oti's comment and think, if you're not a skater and if you haven't got a trained eye, you might think, oh, she didn't do the choreography very well because, she didn't have any breathing spaces, or there wasn't any connection, or it wasn't romantic. And actually, Mark was right to say, that was on me, that was a choreographic choice that I made, and that's not on Michaela, because she executed the choreography perfectly, well, not quite perfectly, but almost perfectly, chef's kiss.
yeah, absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. Skating fifth, Charlie and Brendan to Common People. Brand new partnership. Unfortunately, as we saw, Eric got injured this week.
I
And
have. I'm going to have a rant. You've had enough rants tonight. Now we've done it, but I'm going to have a little rant. Come back, come back. You've gone too far away. I can't see you. You've gone out of focus. I'm going to have a little rant. In the past, sometimes when a partner got injured and it was quite last minute, and this could have happened last week as well with Robin and Vanessa. Why didn't this couple get a bye through to next week? We've had that in the past where couples have had a bye, and obviously Eric got injured. They said it can't be too serious of an injury because it's only a week, so we wish him well and we hope to see him back as soon as possible. It was lovely that Brendan could step in for this week. And you're right, of course, it was nice that Charlie got to skate with a different partner and experience that, and it did enhance her performance. I agree there, but why didn't they just get a bye straight? They're risking injuring more and more pros. We've had so many injuries this year, and I don't know, and I'm pretty sure it's because they didn't have enough time to rehearse, so skating isn't in their body. They broke up mid-December. So the celebrities have been skating for 2 months. They break up mid-December, so they have almost a month off before they come back. That's not cool. And this is why
yeah,
we're seeing so many injuries. And Eric is an Olympic and world skater. He is not, he could lift Charlie, with his eyes closed and a paper bag on his head. No problem. He can do it in the dark. So for him to get injured, something's gone wrong. Something's gone really wrong. And I think it's because the celebrities this year just haven't had enough time. And Sam's injured. I mean, we haven't really spoken much about Sam's injury. It's been kind of pushed away. But I'm sure he's probably still carrying the injury from last week. Now we know that, Eric's gotten injured and it's not Charlie's fault. Of course it isn't. But if she's not quite ready, she's going to make silly mistakes. And that's going to put extra pressure on your wrists or your knees or whatever it is you do to save her. It's not fair. And I feel like they're going to have more and more injuries. We're on a skeleton staff right now.
I'm just gonna say there was a skate off tonight.
Sorry. That's the end of my rant. The floor is yours.
You make a very, very, very good point. Multiple points actually, because yes, the time frame of training has been scaled back. Does that lead to more injuries? I don't know. That would be a question for Sharon, the physio. However,
Well, it appears that way because they're dropping like flies.
yeah. However, I do know the reason, at least 2 seasons ago, when I skated with Patsy. I'm looking at your cowboy hat and it's making me speak Southern. Um,
Yeah.
when I skated with Patsy, now if a celebrity gets injured and they're going to miss a week or maybe 2 weeks, the celebrity gets the bye. If a professional gets injured, the couple does not get a bye through because if there are reserves, which because we're now 5 weeks into the series, there are extra pros around.
Well,
So,
my husband got a bye when Pam got injured.
well, that was series one, though, wasn't it?
Well, but still, I mean, it's happened before
I
that
mean,
the celebs
I was
they've
28
had a
years old.
bye.
I'm now 40 something.
But you don't look a day over 42.
Thank you, darling. But no, yeah. Do I agree with it? No, not necessarily. And I think it should be a case by case situation. And depending upon what day Eric got hurt, because we saw him in the VT on choreography day, so he was there on Monday or Tuesday, and so that means Charlie and Brendan only had a couple of hours together. Which,
Yeah.
to be fair, what they accomplished in a couple of hours is pretty amazing.
She was so confident this week. She has found her feet. She has found her groove. The 90s suits. Hello, the 90s called They Love Charlie. Literally. This was her moment of greatness. I mean, I hope she hasn't peaked because I have never seen a turnaround from last week to this week like the likes of Charlie pulled out. It was
Right.
incredible.
This again goes back to what we saw with Chris Taylor and Robin. When something dramatic happens within your partnership or your journey on Dancing on Ice, sometimes the change in partner or the change in environment makes the skating better. And not that she worked any harder. I mean, I'm sure she worked hard, but it's not like she put in extra hours, right? They would have been putting in extra hours just to learn each other's names. And hey, do you stand on the left or do you stand on the right? But at the same token, it was really amazing to see the change from last week to this week. Like you said, I don't think I've ever seen improvement like that ever in 17 series in the course of 5 days.
She hit disco dancing diva mode at some point. I don't know, she was beaming. Her whole face was lit up from start to finish. I felt like I enjoyed it just because she was enjoying it so much. And also the quality of her skating, like you said, had improved. It was just such a turnaround. I'm still actually a little bit shocked by it. I don't know how
Yeah.
she did it.
It was amazing. I mean, it just goes to show that she's a professional through and through. The judges were unanimous across the board, eights, total of 32. Chris did say that this was her best skate so far, and as we all agree, that she found her feet. Odie found your feet. Jane, Jane's comment, the inside three really got me excited. That made me howl.
I
I
love
never
Jane.
knew I never knew Mrs. T that an inside three turn would get you going, but now I do.
We love it, Jane. We love it. I
Um,
think Jane loves perfection, and she did perfect that to a T. So
well, and I think again, what Jane is, noticing is the improvement, the
yeah,
skills that people at home aren't necessarily going to be able to pick out. Whereas, as a skater that Jane is, that she's really appreciating the skills, the skating skills that Charlie brought to the ice this week. But well done. Interesting with Charlie though, she was bottom of the leaderboard, but she was saved, right? So it's like the last person on the leaderboard gains extra votes because people are so nervous. And that's why I always said, depending upon where you end up on the leaderboard, sometimes when you're in the middle is can be really scary because people forget to vote for you because they want to obviously save the best and save, the person that's last on that leaderboard. So thankfully Charlie was saved because I'm excited to see what now that she's found her feet, I'm excited to see what she is going to bring. Sam and Molly. Again, this was I just didn't I didn't know what to think of it. It left me really ugh.
I agree. It was neither here nor there, unfortunately. Now, I love Sam's skating.
I love his
I
skate.
think his skating, he could win the competition with the skating that he has because I think for me, he's already won it. He's just an incredible skater. He has it in his body. We talk about this every week, how centered he is, how great his skills are. KT Stainsby was his coach originally for his 30 hours before he met Molly, and you can really see how she has instilled skating into him. His skating skills are second. Nobody on the ice at the moment can touch his skating skills.
No, so grounded.
However, this creative for me, it was a bit flat. It didn't really have much of a story. First of all, did they start off by spooning on the ice? I've never seen that before. I didn't like it. I don't.
It has been done before. I think Suzanne and I did it, but I feel yeah, it was kind of confusing to watch, and I think the title of this podcast should be "I'm Confused," because he was so gentle with Molly tonight. I really felt like he understood the assignment of partnering and showcasing the female of the couple, right?
Yeah,
And it was yes, it was powerful, but then it got a little bit tentative. Like it just had this sort of like mixed bag of tricks, and again, the basic skating is there. I'm not faulting any of that, but it just was. And him being an actor, I thought that it would have come out a little bit more. I don't know.
it was a weak storyline, I think. I don't think there was much that he could have come out with. You had this kind of like wicked set in the background, the tulips from the Wizard of Oz type set. Then you had them on the floor, kind of side spooning. It was meant to be romantic, but to me, they're more like siblings. They're more like brother and sister type of relationship. And again, this is where I don't like when you feel that you have to force a romance because it feels very contrived. And I think that's what they were trying to do. But I think neither of them were particularly comfortable with it. And that made us feel uncomfortable with it. I mean,
Okay.
I didn't.
Yeah. No, for sure. Oh, did I have we mentioned though that there was a skate off tonight?
There was a skate off tonight. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
there was. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. No, thanks for reminding me because I had almost forgotten. Somebody said it. One of the judges said that they thought it was quite fresh, but I have seen him do knee slides now on multiple weeks, and I possibly need to stop seeing him doing knee slides. I think I've had enough. He's a great knee slider, and people at home, knee sliding on the ice is not easy. It's chaotic. You put your knee on the ice and you immediately lose control of the grip that you had with your blade. Once you put that fabric down, it can slip and slide all over the place. You have to have super, super core strength to be able to control fabric sliding on the ice. And you never know if the ice is slightly wetter or if the ice is slightly drier or coarse, you're going to go faster, slower. You might rotate, you might not rotate. Like, it's not easy to control. So yes, he's very, very good at it, but I've seen it now. So I'm done.
Yes. Can we now get a round of applause for the judges? Thank you very much. I think probably in the first time the history of this show have we seen a split panel. Well, at least with this series. Odie 7.5, Ashley 8, Jane 8.5, and Chris a 9. Thank you for originality, judges.
Well, we know Dino loves originality, so there you go. You're welcome.
Exactly. But I have to say, I agree with everybody on the panel. Even though the judges, even though they were all split across the board, right? They all brought a very good point. Now, this is what we need to discuss with the judges' critiques with Sam and Molly. We are seeing the difference between the dancing choreographers, Ashley and Odie, and the skating choreographers, Jane and Chris. And if you look at those marks, you can see there's the difference. Sam is getting judged on his skating from Jane and Chris, which is why we had an 8.5 and a 9. Right. However, Odie and Ashley are judging him on the performance, which we felt fell a bit flat, hence the 7.5 and an 8. So with seeing people on socials talking about, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. Well, they do, right? And
we're looking at different things.
Yeah, they're and they should be. They should be looking at different things.
He got a great score. I only worry because I think we saw it last year with Eddie the Eagle, where he was such a phenomenal skater from day one. And we saw that huge progression and then all of a sudden plateau. And I don't want to see the same thing with Sam. So Molly, if you're listening, I need you to start really pushing this. And you're right, of course, mindful of the injury. But we need to start seeing new tricks and, just different choreography and just different ways of showcasing his amazing, incredible skills.
And if you guys don't know or haven't caught up yet, Frankie and Alexandra Schauman have our bonus episode each week on Wednesdays and Thursdays called The Lookbook. And Frankie, I really want you to discuss this week about the boys' trousers, because Chris's trousers and Sam's trousers were high waters. And maybe that was a creative decision, but I don't think it was, because it doesn't look very good. I mean, you sew costumes, like you're a seamstress. You know how to create fantastic looks, right? So can you please just touch upon that? We're not going to do it tonight, but...
Yeah, we definitely will. So yeah, join Alexandra Schauman and I this week where we will be discussing and dissecting all of the glamorous looks, your hair, your makeup, the costumes, the creatives. We've got it all for you.
Can't wait for that. Okay, last but not least, Dan and Vanessa skating to the Lionheart, and the headbanger is back.
I feel like they mentioned the headbanger almost as many times as they mentioned the skate off. Look, we know that when you put a big trick, a big scary trick like a headbanger, and it is scary for male celebrities, but we know that when that happens, the entire focus becomes the headbanger. And Dan even said it himself, even recognized it himself when they were interviewing him afterwards. All they focused on was the headbanger, and it showed because his skating skills regressed. And God knows, I love this man's skating skills. They are smooth. But tonight, for me, I felt like he stepped backwards a little bit, and everything was just focusing on the headbanger. And bearing in mind that headbanger was at the end of the routine. So he tripped himself up at the beginning. He was shaky. His feet weren't underneath him. He was a little bit in that A-frame again that we talked about. There were multiple times where he wasn't quite on the right part of his blade, and I felt like that could have been a problem because, of course, all he's thinking about in his head is headbanger, 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 headbanger.
Completely. And this is another situation to where the VT, they went to a drama class, which, was funny, the little montage that they did. But at the same token, I feel like the drama teacher should have come to the ice to work with them, not on how do I be a lion, right? Like, that's what he was teaching them.
It was completely irrelevant. I didn't get it.
Bring the acting coach to the ice, have a look at the choreography, have a look at the personalization that they're doing and the characterization that they're doing, and then give him tips on that. Because it's like you spent time away from training and you spent money on going to this, acting
Studio.
studio, which was completely irrelevant to the performance, right? And when they
Yeah.
cut to the opening shot of him stood there, and that look in his face, I was like, "Oh, he's come to play." But then you're right. The second he took that first step, he regressed and he went back into his head. And you could tell he was thinking about the headbanger the whole time, which then makes us, as the audience, think about when's the headbanger? When's the headbanger? When's the headbanger? Right?
It was nervy. It was the whole thing was nervy. Confidence tripped him up. He came out because he was thinking about the headbanger. I've got to get for this. I've got to attack it. I've got to go for it. He came out with all this confidence of thinking, if I just believe, I can achieve. And what did he do? He tripped himself up because he got so far ahead of himself just trying to push forwards. His skating skills have definitely regressed, but that's what I'm talking about, this focus, this headbanger focus. And I think we've seen this before. You have to really take a step back, because each individual trick that you do, be it a headbanger, be it a jump, be it a spin, whatever it is, they are seconds out of the routine. Even a headbanger, it's quite a long trick, but it's seconds out of your routine. But your entire routine is a minute and a half. So let's focus on the big picture, because if you miss the headbanger, it's not the end of the world. But if you miss the rest of the routine because you're so focused on the headbanger and you nail the headbanger, which they didn't, but let's say you did, then it doesn't really count for anything except one trick.
Snaps to you, girlfriend. That was right. And I have to say, Vanessa James is a force to reckon with. I feel what she has done with Dan is amazing. I don't personally feel the headbanger should have been done this week because it
Wasn't ready.
He wasn't ready for it.
It wasn't
And
ready.
yes, the judges scored him 9.5s across the board, which I feel is a bit overmarked, but you know, it's a television show, it's an entertainment production, and oh, he did the first headbanger, let's score him the highest. But what we could see is Vanessa skating to the level of what that routine should have been. But then we
Yeah.
saw Dan skate to a level he could have skated if he didn't have all this pressure on that headbanger at the
Yeah.
end. And he like skated 4 steps underneath Vanessa, where last week they skated beautifully on the same level. And it just,
Yeah.
I think them getting pressured into doing that headbanger was the demise of this routine. Granted, they're safe, they got through, the scores were high, TV show got what it wanted, but at the end of the day, it's like, I still want to enjoy these performances for what they are.
So I am Vanessa James Amoroso's biggest fan. I mean, obviously she's got incredible credentials, you know, Worlds, Olympics, European, everything. She's incredible. So I take no joy in criticizing anything about her skating or this routine, but I have to say, you know, in the kind of profession that she was in as a pair skater, she wouldn't have done the headbanger an awful lot. She hasn't had a long professional career; she's had a long amateur career, and headbangers are not allowed in amateur skating; they're only allowed in professional skating. So now, fast forward to somebody that's done the headbanger probably 10 million times, and counting. It's a hard trick to teach, and the technique wasn't quite right. So I don't know if you guys are listening, but I want to help you here. I'm not being critical, but I want to help you. Vanessa knew that wasn't right. Something inside her knew that it wasn't quite ready, because as Dan was winding up and she was gripping with her toe because she didn't feel secure enough, and she felt like if she'd have taken off at any point, she would have pulled him forwards onto her, and that would have been a situation that we saw my husband have with David Seaman had with Pam O'Connor in the first series, because again, Pam wasn't quite ready to do the headbanger and she didn't know how to break it down. So in order to get that headbanger correct, and I hope they do it again and I hope they do it better, but Dan has to take all of that weight back onto himself in order to get Vanessa off the ice. It's an easy fix to make, but if you don't have anybody in that studio that knows how to teach a headbanger, then it's not going to get fixed. So what I'm saying, guys, is I'm not being critical. I really want to help you with this. I want to help you with the technique because I don't like to see it. I want to see everybody to be safe, and I want you to feel secure the next time that you do it.
Well, and you've got Andy Buchanan backstage, you've got Brendan Hatfield backstage, you've got Sylvan backstage, who have all executed headbangers professionally for years and years and years. So please pull one of them in to help you out if you need help. But well done, Dan and Vanessa. Again, I think moving forward, as Frankie said, just keep focused on the trick at hand at that time in the routine. Yeah. Don't let those nerves get away from you or from the start.
Well, congratulations on first place. We love you.
Yes. All right. Well, let's take a look at that leaderboard. Dan and Vanessa there at the top with 38. Michaela and Mark second place, 35.5. Anton and Annette third with 34. Sam and Molly were fourth with 32. Then we had joint fifth for Charlie and Brendan, Chris and Robin at 32. And then bottom of that leaderboard was Molly and Colin at 29.5. Now we have to talk about Lila and Lewis.
Oh my good. These guys just been competing at the European Championships where they came third, and they are our current British UK champions in ice dance. I was so happy to hear they were going to be on the show this week. And we have a big announcement, don't we, Matt?
They are going to be on the Icebreakers podcast this week as well. We're going to be doing a bonus episode with Lila and Lewis. Very excited. They did Dancing on Ice my last year with Patsy, and I got to see them perform live, and they're just phenomenal. And obviously, me being still a fan of competitive skating, I'm really, really excited to get to interview them this week with you.
I mean, it's going to be they are absolute stunners, and they have all the hopes of our nation resting on them, because the European competition next year is in my hometown, Sheffield, at my home rink in Sheffield. So 2026, we've got Europeans coming to Sheffield, and of course, we've got Lila and Lewis, who are currently sitting third in the European Championships. And so we know that their journey, like moving up to Sheffield next year, that trajectory is we want them to win gold. I mean, what an incredible achievement that would be for skating, for the nation. I think, we're looking at like another Jane and Chris kind of journey almost. And so there's a lot of pressure on their shoulders. But while we're talking about the Europeans in Sheffield next year, if you guys have never seen amateur skating, or if you're big fans of amateur skating, head over to the British skating website where you can buy tickets. You can get ringside tickets now. I think they're only on sale until March, and they're selling fast. So you need to get over there, head over to the website. We'll link it for you on our podcast when we put it up, and then you can get your ringside tickets, because Mark Henretti is actually an ambassador.
Yeah, and I think if you've never seen competitive ice skating in person, it will literally blow your socks off. So if you can get yourself to Sheffield for the Europeans next year, by all means, the tickets are on sale. They are reasonably priced. Go do it, because it will be something you'll never forget. But yes, so join us this week on the bonus episode. Very excited to have Lila and Lewis on the podcast with us. All right, the skate off.
Oh, well, there's a skate off this week?
I think there was.
I must have missed it.
I have to say, seeing them skate out of the tunnel, knowing that there was going to be a skate off, and hearing that what we call in TV, the music that you hear underneath is called the tension bed. And it is there to create tension for us at home. I actually felt nervous and a little bit sick to my stomach.
Hated it. You know what? I've spent the last 3 or 4 weeks banging on about how I was so mad that there was no skate off. And then when it came back tonight, I was like, ooh, I hate it. Because we have like a visceral reaction to it, because you and I have been in so many skate offs, or been in that lineup so many times when we could potentially be in so many skate offs. And it's not a nice feeling. You're skating for your life. You're skating for survival.
Absolutely. Anton and Annette against Chris and Robin. Anton skated first. I mean, he nailed it. Absolutely. It was better than the first time.
So much better. And you know what? This is the athlete mentality. He knew that he was sketchy and edgy and not quite on his game the first time around. And I bet he went backstage, had a little chat with himself, and went, right, mate, you are skating for your survival here. If you want to be back next week, you better get this right. And I don't know if he sat down, but he stood there and decided that he was going to come out and do exactly what he'd been doing in rehearsals. And it was like foot perfect, actually, and much better than the first time around.
And then you had Chris come out, which I was really gunning for Chris, because he, is such a great skater, but I just didn't feel like he knew how to rise to the occasion.
So I said, yeah, I was watching it with my husband, David Seaman, name drop, who is also, of course, has been on many Dancing on Ice and BBC ice skating shows, and he's been in this situation himself. And I said to him, I'm worried about Chris. On paper, I would have thought that Chris would have won this skate off, because I just thought the routine was more beautiful. It was stunning. It was visual. It told a story. There was connection. It just had all the ingredients for the right of a winning recipe. But I said to my husband, I was like, he could lose it, because his go-to mode is improv. And if he tries to improv and tries to do a little bit more, or tries to do a little bit better, he could trip himself up. And lo and behold, I think he had two little stumbles, didn't he? He wasn't
Yeah,
clean.
he had two little stumbles. Well, first off, when you have a fast piece against a slow piece, it's difficult to judge the two, right? So then you have to go into what we're seeing as far as the skating skills and the choreography. And I sort of feel possibly with Vanessa never have doing a skate off before, the choreography let him down. If, let's say, if she was the main choreographer on this routine, we don't know. That's what was presented to us, right?
Yeah.
So I felt that the choreography of that slower piece of music couldn't go up against a routine like Anton's, especially with how well Anton executed his choreography.
Well, I mean, the way that Anton executed the choreography the first time around, it was messy, and we didn't actually get to see all of it properly because it was kind of stumbly. But we knew that it was a full program, and we knew that it wouldn't be a full program if he couldn't do it. So we knew that if he did come out and nail it, which he did, it was going to be hard to beat that. I mean, he's a good skater first and foremost, although so is Chris. But then he's got all the tricks. So Chris and Robin aren't quite there yet with the tricks because they haven't had long enough to work on those. And then, of course, it had flavor. Like, he was spicy in that. The second time he came out, he was smiling. He knew that it could potentially be the last skate, for him. And so he just enjoyed it. And so we enjoyed it. Whereas with Chris, I think it was a bit of a shock to his system that he was in the skate off.
And it was a shock to me that he was in the skate off. I didn't think that Chris would have ever been in the skate off. I thought the kid was going to get to the final just on his public vote and his rising skating skills. But this just goes to show as well that leaderboard, when they put that up and they open those voting lines, you do have to vote for your favorites, because what we're seeing now is we're losing good skaters.
And it's a small window as well. I mean, it's not like in the past when we used to be able to vote for, I think it was like half an hour that they had a different program on in between the main skate and the skate off. And you had time to really sit and think about it and keep voting and voting and voting. And now we don't have that anymore. It's like, get your 5 votes in as quick as you can and make sure that you vote for the right people. Because if you vote, 1 vote per person, then you haven't voted at all, because they each cancel them out, right?
Good point. I actually never thought of that. If you put 1 vote per your 5 favorites, they cancel themselves out. Oh my God, Frankie. Learn something new every day.
Under this hat is just a massive brain, like a computer. A computer under my hat.
Yeah, and I'm just looking here on TikTok. Ash had a question. Did we prefer it when Jane and Chris did the choreography for the routines? And I have to say, on 2 points, yes and yes. Because number 1, it took the responsibility off of the professional. And number 2, it created a level playing field, right? So it became about the execution of the choreography, not about the choreography, because the pros have different experiences with choreography. Not everybody can choreograph a skating routine for a television show. Sometimes skaters only choreograph for a live environment. Sometimes they only do commercial work, and do you know what I mean? Different stuff like that. So yeah, gosh, hopefully that answered your question. I think.
Yeah, Ash, I agree with Matt 100%, which is very unusual, I have to say, because we don't normally agree on everything. But I have to say, yeah, you nailed it there, Matt, as well, because I think when you had Chris and Jane overseeing everything, you didn't get what we're seeing at the moment, which is a repetition of these same tricks. Everybody's doing pull-throughs, everybody's doing cartwheels, because Chris and Jane, like you said last week, would come to you, and Dino would say to you, no, we already have a roll up in somebody else's routine, so you have to change it. Well, what else have you got? And I'd be like, wow, why do I have to change it? But he'd be like, because you've got something else to show me. Whereas now, because the pros are all in different rinks around the country and they don't really, obviously speak to each other and tell each other what they're doing, of course we could see multiple cartwheels and multiple pull-throughs, and I think we're losing quality because of that.
Yeah. All right, well, we should really wrap this up. Next week is 80s week.
I'm so excited. It's my peak. I peaked in the 80s. It's been downhill since there, baby.
I don't know if I'm that excited about it, but it'll be fun to have a little theme week with you, Frankie. Thank you so much once again, everybody, for listening. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, share, do your thing. Don't forget, this week we have our bonus episode with Frankie and Alex called The Lookbook, and then as well we have our bonus episode this week with Lila And Lewis talking all about the European Championships and British ice skating in general. And Frankie, my cowboy Carter, have a good week.
You have yourself a good week too, partner. Down on the ranch.
You can do better than that, girl.
I'm gonna go wrangle me some stew.
Some stew?
Maybe, I don't know.
All right, you guys, thanks so much for listening, for watching. We appreciate you. We love you all, and we shall see you same place, same time next week.